I've always believed the road at night has its own kind of silence, one that feels peaceful, almost like the world has finally gone to sleep. But what happened to me that night? I can't forget it. I had just finished a late shift at the small convenience store where I work. It's nothing special, just steady hours and a paycheck, but closing up always keeps me later than I'd like. By the time I got into my car, the town was already dead quiet. The streets were empty, and the only light came from the flickering neon sign out front. The drive home usually takes about 40 minutes, cutting through miles of forest and farmland. Most nights, I don't mind it. It's almost like a reset for my mind. No traffic, no noise, just me and the dark, winding roads. I usually roll down the window, let the cold air in, and think about anything but work. But that night, something was different. The air felt heavier, like it carried a weight I couldn't name. Even the ticking of the dashboard clock sounded too loud. My fingers kept drumming nervously on the steering wheel, and for some reason, I couldn't stop. About 10 minutes into the drive, the road started to change. Out of nowhere, a thick wall of fog rolled in, swallowing the trees and fields around me. One second the sky was clear, and the next, I could barely see past my own headlights. Even with my low beams on, it was like driving into a sheet of milk. Every curve of the road felt sharper, every shadow heavier. I eased off the gas, my heart picking up in my chest. My hands gripped the wheel tighter, and that nervous drumming of my fingers stopped. There was nothing but silence, the hum of the engine, and the heavy fog pressing in. That's when I saw it. Off to the right, maybe a car length away, a faint red glow flickered in the fog. At first, I thought it had to be someone's brake light, but there was no car, no sound of an engine, no movement, nothing. The glow just hovered there, floating, pulsing softly as if it was alive. I tried to focus on the road, telling myself it had to be a reflector or a light post, but it didn't fade away. It stayed with me, moving as I moved, keeping perfect pace. And that's when the fear really sank in. I slowed the car to almost a crawl, thinking maybe if I eased up, the glow would finally pull ahead or drift away. But it didn't. No matter how much I slowed, it stayed there, steady and unchanging, hovering like it was tethered to me. My palms were slick against the steering wheel. A cold sweat spread across the back of my neck, and I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. My stomach twisted so hard, it felt like I might throw up. The fog pressed in on all sides, muting every sound, sealing me inside the car like I was trapped in a box. That's when the glow changed. It began to pulse, slow and steady, like the beat of a heart. Every time it swelled brighter, the pit in my chest tightened. I whispered, almost without thinking, "It's nothing. It's nothing." But the sound of my own voice inside that silence made me feel even more insane, like I was confirming it was real. Then, everything started to go wrong. The radio fizzled into static, the dashboard lights flickered, and the headlights dimmed to a sickly glow. The engine coughed, then died completely, leaving me in total silence. My hands shook as I twisted the key. Over and over. Nothing. Dead. I grabbed my phone, hoping to at least call someone, but the screen blinked out the second I touched it. Battery had been at 60%. Now it was nothing. I glanced up at the rearview mirror. There was no road behind me, no trees, no horizon, just endless, suffocating fog. And through it, the red glow still pulsed, closer than before. The glow suddenly swelled, no longer a faint flicker in the fog, but a blinding flare. It grew brighter and brighter until it filled the entire side of the road, washing everything in a searing red-white glare. I threw an arm up over my eyes, but it still burned through, stabbing into my vision. The heat hit me next, like opening an oven door and standing too close. My skin prickled, sweat rolling down my face. My stomach lurched with nausea, and a high-pitched ringing filled my ears until I couldn't even hear myself breathe. I slammed my fists against the steering wheel, screaming at the car, begging it to start, anything to get me away. The engine stayed dead, and the light just kept swelling, filling every inch of the world outside my windows. For one terrifying moment, I thought it was going to consume me completely. It was like staring into the heart of an exploding star. My vision went white, my thoughts scrambled, and for several endless seconds, there was nothing but that light. And then, silence. Darkness. The glow vanished. Just gone, as if it had never existed. The fog was still there, thick and choking, but suddenly the dashboard lit back up. The headlights cut through the mist, like normal. My phone screen flickered back to life, showing a full charge, and when I turned the key, the engine purred like nothing had ever been wrong. I gasped for air, trembling so hard my hands barely held the wheel. I slammed my foot on the gas and tore through the fog, desperate to get away from whatever I had just witnessed. I didn't stop driving. My hands clenched the wheel so tight they ached, and my foot pressed hard on the gas. The fog thinned here and there, but every shadow looked alive. Every sound felt louder than it should. I kept flicking my eyes up to the rearview mirror, half expecting that awful glow to flare back into existence behind me. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my chest hurt from holding my breath. I killed the engine, bolted inside, and locked every door and window. My body was still shaking, so I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the couch, trying to slow down my racing thoughts. Maybe it was just exhaustion. Maybe the fog had messed with my head, made me see things that weren't there. My nerves, my stress, hallucinations, that's all. That's what I kept telling myself. Then I saw it. Sitting on the coffee table in front of me was something that hadn't been there when I left. A tiny ember, no bigger than a marble, glowing faintly in the dim room. It pulsed, slow and steady, just like the light on the roadside. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't brought anything inside. I knew that for certain. The ember pulsed again, brighter this time. I whispered, my voice barely audible. It followed me home, and the room went still. Sometimes the worst part of the road isn't the miles, it's what waits in the darkness. This happened about 3 years ago. My name's Mark, and I've been a long-haul trucker for most of my adult life. Nights on the highway don't usually get to me. I'm used to the silence, the stretches of nothing but asphalt and sand. But this drive was different. I was cutting across a desert route, one of those endless 2-lane highways where the world feels hollow. No gas stations, no towns, not even a radio station worth keeping on. Just me, my rig, and a sky littered with stars so bright it almost hurt to look at them. For a while, I felt like I was the last person alive out there. But then, in my side mirror, I caught it. A faint glow way back on the road. Headlights. Distant, steady. They didn't gain on me, didn't fall back. Just hung there, like a shadow keeping pace. At first, I didn't think much of it. Cars pop up on the highway now and then, even in the middle of nowhere. But the longer I drove, the stranger it felt. In my mirror, I could make out the shape. Looked like a dark SUV. It kept a perfect distance, not too close, not too far, like it was tethered to me. I eased off the gas, just to test it. A few seconds later, its headlights dimmed slightly, slowing right along with me. My chest tightened. I pressed down harder, picking up speed, and sure enough, those headlights stretched forward, matching me stride for stride. It wasn't aggressive, no tailgating, no honking, nothing like that. Just there, constant, watching. I told myself maybe it was another driver nervous about passing a big rig at night, or maybe they were just lost and clinging to my lights. But after 10, 15, 20 minutes of the same exact pattern, that excuse started to sound thin. My palms were sweating, gripping the wheel tighter than I realized. Every glance in the mirror made my heartbeat pound louder, like the cab itself was shrinking in around me. After nearly 40 minutes of that game, I spotted a small rest area up ahead. It wasn't much, just a dirt lot with a couple of faded parking spaces, one busted shed, and a single lamp flickering above two dead vending machines. Still, it was enough. I figured if I pulled over, he'd either pass me or I'd finally get a chance to see what his deal was. I eased my rig into the lot, killed the engine, and glanced back. Sure enough, the SUV rolled in too, parking off in the far corner like it didn't want to be noticed. That was it. My pulse hammered in my ears as I climbed down from the cab, my shadow long and shaky across the gravel. I barely took a few steps before the SUV's engine roared to life. It spun out, tires spitting dirt, and vanished into the night. Relief hit me, but so did something colder, something I couldn't shake. I stood there for a moment in the dust he left behind, my adrenaline burning off into exhaustion. My whole body felt heavy as I climbed back into the cab. I'd heard stories before, cargo thieves working in teams, waiting for the right chance to strike, but I'd never had anyone tail me that long. The thought made me feel exposed, like the steel walls of my rig weren't enough to protect me out here. Still, I told myself it was over. Whoever that was, they were gone now, and the odds of them circling back were slim. Just a quick nap, I thought. An hour to recharge, then I'd finish the route with daylight on my side. I reclined the seat, cracked the window for air, and let my eyes close. Even in sleep, though, part of me stayed awake, ears sharp, nerves wired, waiting. I don't know how long I was out, maybe an hour at most, when a sound cut through my sleep. It was faint, but enough, soft crunching, like shoes grinding into loose gravel. My eyes snapped open. I stayed still, barely breathing, and reached to crack the curtain. Two figures crouched by the rear wheels of my trailer. My stomach dropped. They weren't just looking, they were working. One held a small flashlight, angling the beam low, flashing it toward the other. The second man pulled out something long and heavy. Bolt cutters. They were going after my locks. A chill ran through me, but instinct kicked in. Without thinking, I slammed my palm down on the horn. The truck's air horn exploded into the night, a scream of steel and fury that rattled the cab. The two men shot upright like they'd been electrocuted, then scrambled into the dark brush. That's when I saw them. Headlights, sudden, blinding, sweeping back into the lot. The SUV. It slowed just enough for me to see its outline before whipping around and disappearing again. By the time the police arrived, the marks were still fresh on my lock. They told me flat out, I'd been stalked and they'd been waiting for their moment. Even after the officers left and the sun finally started bleeding over the desert horizon, the unease didn't leave me. I sat behind the wheel, staring at that empty stretch of road, trying to piece together what really happened. The SUV, was it watching my back, or was it part of the whole setup? The cops suggested it might have been a scout vehicle, running point for the men who tried to cut my locks. Maybe it was supposed to swoop in if things went wrong. That thought twisted my stomach. For hours, I'd been driving with those headlights in my mirror, not knowing if I was being protected or hunted. The line between the two blurred in a way that made my skin crawl. Even now, years later, I don't feel safe on those lonely stretches. Daylight doesn't erase it. That night carved a scar I still carry every mile I drive. About a week later, I finally pulled the dashcam footage. Part of me wanted proof, something I could show other drivers, or maybe even the cops again. At first, it was exactly how I remembered. The long empty highway, the glow of my tail light stretching across the blacktop. But when I got to the part where the SUV pulled into the lot, my stomach turned cold. On the footage, there were no headlights. None. The SUV slid into view like a shadow, its shape barely visible under the flicker of that lone lamp. Yet I could have sworn I remembered those lights trailing me for miles, burning into my mirror. Then came another punch. The police dashcam later that night. Their recording caught an SUV circling the lot, but it wasn't the same one. The body shape, the light pattern, it was different. That's when it hit me. There hadn't been one SUV. There were two. One shadowing me, one waiting. Which one was hunting me, and which one was trying to keep me busy? I'll never know. All I know is, every time I'm back on that desert stretch, I catch myself staring too long into the mirror. The road still whispers in the glass behind me. They say the most dangerous roads aren't the ones filled with traffic, they're the ones that look completely empty. It was just after midnight when I found myself cruising down a lonely stretch of highway in the middle of the countryside. The windows were down, warm summer air rushing through, carrying the smell of cut grass and dust. The only sound was the steady hum of my tires rolling over faded asphalt, a rhythm that almost felt comforting. Out here, there were no headlights behind me, no cars ahead, just me, the road, and endless black sky. For a while, it felt like freedom, the kind of drive that clears your head and makes the world feel small and quiet. But every now and then, I'd catch sight of something strange in the glow of my headlights. Shapes along the ditch, like silhouettes standing just out of focus. Each time I blinked, they were gone. The silence pressed heavier, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't as alone as I thought. Up ahead, just beyond the reach of my high beams, I caught a flicker of movement near the shoulder. At first, I thought it was just a deer, maybe ready to dart across the road. But as I rolled closer, my chest tightened. It wasn't an animal at all. There was someone standing there, a woman. She was motionless, her pale dress hanging loose around her like it didn't quite belong to her body. Her posture was stiff, arms down at her sides, head tilted ever so slightly, like she was straining to hear something. The glow of my headlights washed over her face, but the shadows seemed to swallow it at the same time, leaving her features blurred, almost unreal. I turned the music off without thinking, rolled the windows down. The world outside was unnervingly still, no crickets, no breeze, nothing. My heart hammered as I slowed down, caught between instincts. Keep driving, don't get involved, or stop and see if she needed help. My hands gripped the wheel tighter, every blink of the dash lights feeling louder than it should in that empty stretch of road. I finally made the decision to pull over, my stomach twisting in knots. Part of me screamed to just drive on, to leave whatever that was behind me. But curiosity had a stronger grip. I grabbed my phone for light, stepped out into the quiet night, and aimed the beam at where I thought she'd been standing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The shadows stretched across the road, empty fields on either side, but no sign of her. Then I heard it. A faint rattle coming from the back seat, almost like someone shifting their weight. My heart leapt into my throat. I spun slowly, trying to see if it was the wind or maybe an animal. But the wind was still, and the empty road stretched away in both directions. Then, a whisper, low and strained, just at the edge of hearing. "Hello?" I froze. My voice caught in my chest. I swallowed hard and called out, shakily, "Are you okay?" Dead leaves rustled behind me, the faint ticking of my engine feeling unnaturally loud. My breath came out in small puffs, hands trembling as the flashlight flickered. Every instinct told me to run, but something was drawing me closer to the darkness. I barely had time to react before the figure lunged at my car, slamming against the passenger door with a sickening thud. The impact rattled the frame, and a jagged crack spread across the window like lightning. My heart skipped. My breath caught in my throat. I could see it clearly now. Its face twisted, smeared with dirt and blood, eyes wide and hollow, staring straight through me. Cold fingers pressed against the glass, sliding slowly as if testing the barrier. I dove into the driver's seat, slamming the door and locking it as adrenaline surged through every nerve. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, sweat dripping down my face, and my pulse felt deafening in my ears. Tires screamed against the asphalt as I spun the wheel, trying to put distance between us. Every second was a blur. Headlights streaked across the dark road, the painted lines whipping past in a hazy flash. I could hear the pounding footsteps behind me, fading slowly, but leaving a gnawing unease in their wake. My chest heaved, hands trembling, but I kept my eyes on the road, desperate to escape the nightmare that had materialized out of the empty night. I finally pulled over at the first safe spot I could find, lungs burning, hands still shaking. I leaned back in the seat, trying to calm my racing heart, and caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. My face looked pale, wet with sweat, eyes wide and unblinking. I blinked once, then twice, and froze. Behind me in the mirror, another face appeared. At first, I thought it was my reflection, but it wasn't right. The features were twisted, eyes darker, expression wrong. It mimicked me, but just slightly off, like some warped version of myself. My stomach dropped as a chilling thought hit me. Had I been running from my own doppelganger? Or some ghostly twin I couldn't comprehend? I rubbed my eyes and blinked again. The face was gone, but the smear of blood, streaked across the window and trailing along the edge of the glass, didn't disappear. My mind spun, questioning what I'd just seen. Had I truly escaped the figure chasing me, or was I still trapped in some nightmare version of my own reflection? The fear shifted from simple terror to a deep, unsettling disorientation, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. I finally made it home, hands trembling on the wheel, chest still hammering like it wanted to escape. The dashboard lights flickered as I parked in the driveway, my heart refusing to slow. I glanced back at the dark windows of the car and froze. For a brief second, I thought I saw a pale figure standing there, staring straight at me, before it vanished into nothing. I stepped out, shaking, and the streetlight above flickered once, then went steady, casting long shadows across the empty driveway. The passenger seat remained empty, the rear-view mirror dark and still, but the memory of that face clung to me. I keep replaying that night in my head, every turn, every shadow, every whisper. Did I really outrun something out there, or was it myself I couldn't escape? The thought lingers, twisting in the dark corners of my mind, and I know some part of that night will never let me rest.